Good evening, everyone. Um, okay, gonna talk about the same sort of stuff I normally talk about. I briefly touched base on, the situation in Hong Kong in more recent videos, and the problem here is that it's too damn easy to explain. It, like, the lack of video footage or other physical evidence to suggest that there is no probability of anything of what I've said to be accurate is being moronic. I admit there has to be a balance of, well, is not just my thought pattern, but anyone else's, is it inaccurate based on what limited information I have, and there's no chance of it being a possibility when I am more than convinced that it's more than a probability. Um, there's some things to point out. For one thing, all news outlets and the beer trash that run them, they say things in the most stupid, moronic, uh, literally mental illness type ways that there's no way they can be believed. And they may say one thing, and it could be a total lie. In all probability, it is. You take, for example, how supposedly in the last few months, the Chinese have slapped tariffs on Canadian pork products. They don't want to be buying Canadian pork. Well, for starters, that's a straight up lie. The mainland Chinese don't have enough meat as it is, and there's 1.5 billion of them. They're not closing their doors on buying Canadian pork. Um, it's more like the other way round. And, you know, what people don't understand is that, you take something like bacon, because the second someone hears that, you like pork or you like meat at all, they assume that you're thinking bacon in your head. And it's like, actually, the bacon you eat is really, really like not very good bacon. Like, there's good bacon, like Irish backgammon bacon. That's good bacon. But the shit bacon that you see everywhere around here, that's not good bacon. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. Um, that is an example of where the government says one thing, but they're really doing something else. And it's like that with a lot of things. Like, you take this extradition treaty that the mainland Chinese are demanding. They're demanding it. You probably won't find much internet sources to back it up. A source that could be written by anyone at any fucking time for any reason, or maybe even one that's catered to you because they've got a dossier on you, which they have with everybody who is connected to the internet in some way, shape, or form. You can't live in society and be anonymous. You can be, a less bright of a star. You can be quieter and, sort of blend in with the pack, but you're not actually out of their sites. If they want to look into you, it doesn't matter for whatever reason. They can easily do that. That's not difficult for anybody. Um, yeah, but people, they have such a minuscule grasp on what is actually going on around. And, I'm no different. I'm not going to be hypocritical and claim that I know a bunch of things and therefore I'm smarter than everyone else, because there's a lot of things I don't know. However, the things that I've observed and the way they are presented, I've made conclusions. And it's not going to go along with the mainstream narrative. I think the mainstream narrative is quite literally insane and should be locked up in the mainstream narrative mental asylum because obviously it's unsuitable for you know the intellectual consumption of the masses. And you take those protests that are going on in Hong Kong right now and have been for a little while over the extradition treaty, which is what I was going to get back to. Um, I forget whatever her name is, the governor or whatever her name is. I don't really care that much to look into it and remember those sort of details. It's, the bare bone facts, not facts, facts that are what is important. And they put it on pause, the extradition treaty. But actually, that's a load. Uh, the people in mainland China are OCD about their laws. Every government is, and they see Hong Kong as part of their territory and subject to their laws, and they want to see the judicial system move over into Hong Kong. Now they got some push power because, I mean, as I described in other videos, it would not be very difficult for the Chinese Communist Party to annihilate Hong Kong. Wouldn't be difficult at all, and that's a perpetual thing. That's always ongoing. So long as Chinese Communist Party is in power in China, that is always a problem. It doesn't matter if you don't like my opinion or not. That is a fact. And obviously that's an uncomfortable fact to live with. A lot of people are really, really poor in Hong Kong. A lot of people immigrate to here, to Vancouver specifically, which is what I'm talking about, and they have relatives back there. It may sound like apocalyptic, um, end of the world conspiracy theory type stuff, but it might sound like, oh, that'll never happen. It's out of left field. But if it ever did, then all of a sudden, you know, that's a fact. It's like when September 11th happened. Uh, not many people thought that that was going to happen. There were some that probably had an inclination to that sort of theory. Um, like I've heard stupid conspiracy theories about that, like some tarot cards or some nonsense like that that depicted such an act. Didn't really believe the story. I saw it on YouTube years ago. Not important. Um, but yeah, as soon as something like that happens, it happens. And a deterrent is obviously that the Russians aren't. They don't want the Chinese Communist Party doing anything. And that'll be the same with the Indians, that'll be the same with the Japanese, that'll be the same with the South Koreans. And basically, it's one giant, long, never ending argument. And, there's some things to consider. Like, actually, when a Chinese person is angry, and I mean like straight up from like Hong Kong, barely can speak English kind of angry. I don't mean westernized angry, because something people need to know is if you're angry and somebody can't contradict you, usually you're going to get your way. And, like different nationalities have their, you can lump some of them and go, well, this is how they get angry. This is what they look like when they're angry. Like everyone knows what an Italian looks like when he's angry. Um, Everyone knows what an American looks like when they're angry. Obviously there's some tinkering around. Everyone knows what a black guy looks like when he's angry, like an American black guy, as opposed to, an African black guy. And to be honest, it kind of simply looks funny when a person of Asian origin looks angry. It doesn't look like someone like you can take them seriously. Unless, they're sharpening knives and you're tied to, the wall and rats are gnawing on your feet in Vietnam. Then you can take them seriously. But like you're hearing someone on the phone and, they don't speak that much English or whatever. And, the other factors, like a guy like me, I'd laugh it off. Uh, I'm simply not intimidated by that sort of thing. I mean, obviously, it's, if you're I don't know, hanging upside down and or off a skyscraper or something like that, and they're the ones holding you up and they're yelling in your face at the same time. I suppose then that would be different, but offhand, they're not very intimidating, especially if they can't actually exercise any punitive measures um, that will affect someone or a nation for that matter. Uh, However, the Hong Kongers, that is a legitimate threat from the mainland Chinese, the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. There's a legitimate threat that they got to worry about. For the most part, we ain't got to worry about anything like that here in the West. We don't have hostile neighbors. There's no civil wars going on or anything like that. Uh, Not that there isn't people saying there is, but there's not. Maybe a damn short one if there were. Um, you know, uh, I can't stress enough. Like it's not easy to even see somebody who's out of control angry. Most people don't even want to look at that. So even the mere sight of how angry and serious these people are over there in the PLA, that would be intimidating. And if, by however means they managed to get over to here and started instituting their laws, which they're constantly trying to think of a way to do that. And, I have discussed our defense systems on a few occasions. Yeah, they're, well, after the fact, it'll be all right, but, shit hits the fan, you're not doing too well. Um, yeah, and it's like, you know, there are, what we'll simply call them triads, because I can't think of another name to call them, actually. But there are, gangbangers around here in suits similar to the Yakuza who are running around the city and, in fact, are in bureaucratic institutions and they're bigger fish higher up the food chain. And, you know, us little fish, we're not even really supposed to know they're there. We're not supposed to think about that. We're supposed to worry about our phone bill at the end of the month. We're supposed to worry about the consistency of prices of apples. We're supposed to worry about, girlfriend issues, you name it, all this stupid shit we're supposed to be concerned with. And that's fine if you want to be concerned with that. Obviously, those are annoyances, but people don't differentiate between annoyances and what's a significant fucking problem. And, there is some things that from somebody looking from the outside in to who I am as a person and everything I've said on social media. And, you know, they can sit where they are and go, oh, I can tear apart this guy's argument like it was a Terry's chocolate orange. He doesn't have a chance against me. And it's like, well, I don't actually agree with you, and I don't think you're smart enough to convince me that I'm wrong. And seeing the tactics that I've seen over the years of where people are trying to dissuade me from thinking the way I do, uh, I think I've reached a stage where, I may not necessarily be right about something, but the kind of structure of my argument, maybe some details are a little off off center, but it's solid. And I would feel very disrespected if someone were trying to approach me in kind of a debate sort of sense, and they use lowbrow, dismissive rhetoric to try and convince me that I'm wrong. They always try that, and it's like, no, uh, there are things that are real, and because you don't see them doesn't mean they don't exist. You know, back in the 60s, people didn't know about germs. Yeah, germs are real. It doesn't matter if you can see them or not. Um, and yes, we do have Asian mobsters running around in business suits in bureaucratic positions, and not because they deserve to be there, not because we're palsy wowsy with with the mainland Chinese and by proxy the Hong Kongers. Um, I mean, it wasn't exactly a happy marriage that 100 years that the British occupied them. Obviously the Hong Kongers learned a lot, but a lot of them, were essentially turned into slaves. Basically, anything of value was taken from them. Everything we knew about them was taken from them. Um, and they're still, they're on, essentially the front lines if the PLA feels the need to do anything or, wants to anyway. And, for them, that's kind of getting the shitty deal. I mean, it's the truth. It is a sad thing. Um, however, most Asian countries have the same problem. They don't got enough space, and Hong Kong is no exception. And that's the same with the Japanese. It's the same with the South Koreans, the Taiwanese, and a lot of people they don't understand that colonization, searching for new lands to occupy, control, and basically steal from or win in battle, I should say, from their opponents. Those Asian countries I listed, if they could get away with it, they would steamroll through any occupying force of whatever stretch of land that they could. So if Canada were uninhabited, for example, or only inhabited by the natives, and even the Japanese or whomever, they would go over there and they would conquer it because that would be in their best interest as a nation. And it's like when you start thinking like that, you go, well, that isn't that the stepping stones of why, countries do evil things. Because it really is. I mean, essentially, it's a necessity. Japan's a little skinny little island with nothing on it, and no resources, and no way to repel any kind of attack, and you can't rely on the good nature of others, which is why I didn't like Avengers and didn't watch much of it, watched hardly any of it, because this is lulling people into the sense of you can trust in the good nature of humanity and this and that. And it's like, no, you can't. Not in this world. No, you can't. You do have to go, well, that's what they're thinking over there. And if they're not thinking that, then they're kind of stupid, aren't they? Obviously they don't have a solution to, better their situation other than lay a guilt trip on people because there's so many people who are susceptible to that. And the brainwashing, which is essential to people, turning into puddles of gratitude and, like apologetic and things like that, it starts early on. And been a steady stream of that I've noticed specifically in Vancouver, where it's all about equality, 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 equality. And it's like, no, you're rearranging the power structure. That's what you're really doing. So this equality bullshit, in fact, if anything, it makes you more evil. because it just means like, and I've definitely said this before that there are white people out there that'll have no problem shafting another white person, and that doesn't make them a better person because they'll shaft anyone. You know, I guess it makes it no worse than some asshole who only does it to people that are not of their nationality. However, it doesn't make them any better. And there are a lot of people out there like that. People are assholes. That's those are the facts. Um, yeah, it's a big long discussion, and there isn't exactly that many descriptive factors, um, especially on any news outlet you can find here. You have to go over there and be looking for that kind of thing, and then you're drawing all kind of bad attention. I'm drawing bad attention, and I'm here supposedly in white man country. I had mentioned that basically I'm a slave to the system, and I don't mean my workplace. I mean an actual slave because I think I got put in a program where it was quite easy to put me in this program. Went through mental health. There's a stigma against mental health. People don't like people who are perceived to be mentally ill because they go, "Wow, this guy's not cool. He's this, that, and the other. I don't want him anywhere near me." So immediately you're isolated from regular social contact. And what groups they offer, there's an undertone of authoritarianism where they're teaching you to think like an idiot. So that's one thing. Then they add the physical aspect, which is making you chronically ill if you don't fall in line with the way they want you to think, which is very manipulative. So what do? No social life, and you're possibly in physical discomfort, if not outright pain. What sources do you have? You have the internet. You have TV. You yearn to talk, discuss some of your philosophical beliefs with other people. So what do? You make a YouTube channel like I do. Easy for them because they have all the deniability in the world that they never watch any of my stuff. They hardly even know it exists, and yada yada yada, and they lied right to your face. A lot of people are compulsive liars. That's another thing you gotta understand. And um, I really don't like that approach. Like if I don't like something or someone's pissing me off in some way, I'll say it right to their face. And I'll explain to them, exactly why, whether they want to hear it or not. That yeah, your race is actually here for notorious reasons, and it doesn't matter if Justin Trudeau paints a smiley face on it. It's the same goddamn thing. Uh, you know, uh, some people have limited capabilities when it comes to their mind. They have social constructs and other barriers to keep their mind in check. Because some people, if they started thinking like this, then they'd end up probably somewhere where they don't want to be inside their head. And I have my own barriers. Everyone's got them. You should have them anyway, unless you're an idiot. Um, and for me, my enemies would like to go, "Oh, when he's got a few drinks, those barriers are weakened, and he'll really show his true colors." Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, really? Do I gotta put up with this from you? Your lowbrow, pathetic psychology and psychiatric capabilities? What you've learned so far? I have to do what you say or think the way you want me to think? And it's like, no, I did research on my own, and my research isn't going to jive with what you got to say because you'll have biased opinion. I mean, a lot of people from Hong Kong, for example, want to bring their relatives over here. Maybe because they don't know about the safety risk of, being right next to the Chinese Communist Party and them not liking them. Because essentially, Hong Kong, even though a lot of its populace was essentially enslaved, actually became very wealthy as a country for a good long while, and proportionally, is still way more wealthy than the mainland Chinese. And they actually don't like that. That's insult to imperial prestige and all that sort of stuff. Stuff that shouldn't matter. However, it does to certain individuals because that's how they maintain their power. And there's obviously um, people out there that want more power. And yeah, who knows? However, you know, um, it's uh, it's all about perception, and it's a fucking scary planet when you start to think about it. And here we are, living in this tiny little bubble of ours, of what we think normal society is supposed to be, and we're supposed to trust the authority figures not to fuck us around. Like with me, for example, I said I felt like a slave, and I am essentially. I've given the medical community and psychiatric community a lot of information based on a certain set of circumstances that I'm going through. And, you know, in a way, it was quite involuntary. I almost never thought about making a YouTube channel before, and because of my circumstances, I had to make one. A little bit of expression, for example, that somebody perhaps could admire, hate, or whatever. Um, and it's not easy. It's not easy coming up here on making YouTube videos, especially of a contradictory nature to what people want to hear. Uh, like, obviously they looked at me and went, "Oh, he's got an underdeveloped personality. He doesn't fully understand who he is," and things like that. And it's like, no, actually, you don't understand me. Why the hell would you understand me better than myself? Than me being able to understand myself? Why would you understand me more than that? Oh, because you went to university. Oh, because you're a psychiatrist, lazy and opportunistic, and you read the cheat sheets, and basically you observe and you don't say anything so no one could possibly know what you're exactly thinking. But, deductive reason, you can figure a lot of things out. Figure out why people do things, why people are bad, why evil is allowed to perpetuate itself. All these things are real. And anyone, trying to wave a magic wand to make it all disappear, or at least appear to be gone, is just as evil. And that means every common day citizen isn't exactly going to know when something significantly bad has happened necessarily. Um, and this is really a policy of appeasement. And, we don't like to use words like that because it sounds like a military loss. However, it's stages of one for sure. I mean, like, yeah, you take your victories where you can, and obviously your losses and things like that, and go, is this another 100 years war we're going to be fighting? Another 1,000 years war? Is it going to end tomorrow because one man submersible, nuclear powered submarine with a kamikaze pilot went AWOL and detonated a device in the Fraser River? Is that going to happen? I don't know. I mean, it's not going to be the same thing as someone going, "Oh, gee whiz, I hope they still sell cod burgers at A&W." That's, there's a lot of people that, that's their problem for the day. And, like, it's like, really? Is that all it takes to disrupt your thought pattern and really put you in a bad mood? I mean, it's annoying, but it's not obviously going to put me in a bad mood. I usually have significant reasons, as I've discussed, as to why I might be pissed off about something or why I don't like certain things. And, these things aren't necessarily somebody's fault directly, especially if they're small fish. And, obviously bigger fish eat small fish, and there's always a bigger fish. And, the higher up you go the food chain, the more dirty the system actually is. And, here I am sweating quite bad actually in my room. It's actually quite toasty. My house is really more built for winter rather than summer. And I don't actually like summer that much anyway. I think it's a very overrated season. But anyway, um, yeah, I mean, like I'm saying things that are seriously significant here, and I know there isn't going to be any direct response. People kind of blur the lines, and if anyone says anything, it'll say it once, and maybe try to put a thought in my head, and then it'll kind of there won't be any real dialogue. And these are significant things to be thinking about, and it's like there isn't anyone I could talk to who either wouldn't want to dismiss it or, you know, uh, essentially change the nature of the argument. I've seen it before where they simply try to argue about something else. And it's like, well, that's not indicative to this conversation or anything like that. However, that's how some people win arguments, at least in their own head. And when they go to tell people of the conversation you just had, and they tell their slanted version, then it makes you, as a hypothetical, appear to be wrong, and they're right because they twisted what the argument was. They twisted your words. They um, essentially, yeah, changed the nature of the argument and changed the outcome of the argument too, because either they're so stupid that the simplistic rhetoric that they have is good enough for them to be convinced of their own intellectual prowess, or that they don't even want to admit that to you, and they'll tell people who have a preconceived bias who wouldn't want to believe you anyway. But when I say, there are military leaders in the Chinese Communist Party that would love to eradicate Hong Kong as a fuck you to the West, and essentially treat the Hong Kongers as if they were traitors and things like that, and they would feel as though they've done what was needed to be done in the sense of warfare. Um, you know, if I told you that wasn't a thing, that would be inaccurate because it totally is. There are people who do think along that thought process, and yeah, uh, it is a spooky situation, and how all this is a problem specifically for me is all this time I've been observed and people have been allowed to criticize, ridicule, and every other sort of negative thing towards me, and because I don't see it, somehow it doesn't exist. That's stupid. I already explained, because you don't see something, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist necessarily. I mean, sometimes things don't exist, but actually, this does exist because I've said a lot of fucking things on YouTube. So that's a bunch of bullshit the way people are talking to me, and they're content with that being, the main way that I'm talked to. And it's because I criticize Asians, and there's a lot of Asians in Vancouver, and who knows how many of them are, looking into my channel and hate every second of it. And it's like, well, I'd feel bad for you, but you're probably an asshole, so I don't feel bad for you. Um, and I do have to be concerned because, yeah, I mean, everyone's got weaknesses, and it's ridiculous. It could be set up in such a way that the only real option, and this will be psychological, is that there'll be an Asian chick. If I don't pursue her, they'll call me a homo, or that I enjoy being an involuntary celibate. And I can't simply go after them a little bit, because then they'll they'll backtrack. No matter what, they'll backtrack because the system isn't happy with the way I think. They don't like my perception of what a relationship should look like. Not that I've talked a lot about that, but and it wouldn't be because you know they think whatever about me. It would be about control. And the thing is, supposing I go with an Asian chick, I made a video about this. Supposing I did, um, the image of me going with an Asian chick would reverberate, and the people would, if they knew only that one thing about me, that would contradict everything I've said on YouTube and other social media outlets about what I think about policy. It wouldn't even matter if I completely explained why they were wrong, because the Asian chick could just turn around and say, no, he said the complete opposite, and that's because I was going with her, and therefore they figure they have some sort of right to say what I've been saying the whole time, except their own slanted version. This is all really screwed up stuff, you know? Like, I'm a traditional dude, you know? I'll go with an Asian chick for a while and then, you know, kind of dump them after a while if I don't like their, opinions on certain things. And there's a few catchphrases I absolutely cannot stand, and surprisingly, one of them is, uh, "This is a conversation we need to have." It's like, no, it's a conversation you want to have. Go have it with people that they want to have it as well, because I don't want to have that conversation. And I there's like so many things about who I am as a person, and there are going to be people going, "Oh, but your opinions conflict with our ideological belief system," and we're the kind of people who contain people like you because we don't want the world thinking like you do, and obviously, that is a problem for me because who's to say that their um, ideological beliefs are better. There is always somebody who thinks they're always right, and I got news for you: you're not. And I'm not saying a nuclear war with China would be a good thing, but I am saying that that is a real, real, real possibility, and it really doesn't take much. And I think there are, you know, uh, white people counterparts within Asia. I know this for a fact, actually, who are in similar situations as me, and it's like that there's a white jurisdiction in Hong Kong. There's no doubt about that. And there's a Hong Kong jurisdiction in Hong Kong, as you would expect. And that's the same thing here in Vancouver. There's white Canada, and there's the Hong Kongers who are um, exchanging ideas, solving problems, yada, yada, yada. They do work together, and sometimes they come up with ideas that are better, which is part of the reason why mutual cooperation between intellectual races is beneficial in some ways. However, the iron fisted hand of necessity for the Hong Kongers to alleviate pressure for them to not look like traitors to the Chinese Communist Party means that they have to instill anti-white legislation. And the white guys in power, a lot of them don't actually really care if the serfs are, in a shitty situation. Like, you take minimum wage earners, they will never be able to afford anything and own it in their entire fucking lives. You could give them $100,000 and they will still never afford anything anywhere near the big city. Um, that's a minimum wage earner. I'm sure if they worked very, very hard, uh, maybe they could own a shitty apartment. Uh, However, that wasn't the case for me, but that's, simply by chance. Um, and yeah, this is, they go, well, you're better off even if you're a renter your entire life than someone living in a coffin-sized cage in Hong Kong who wakes up and works 13 hours a day in a metal factory to build little things. Uh, and, with political pressure from, obviously the Hong Kong government, who, like any authoritarian regime, will start telling people what to do and start telling other nationalities what to do and other nations. And it would be quite insulting if people actually heard some of the demands that they make. And they don't let these things go. It's like a never ending argument, as I said. And I don't know, like, I'm getting more and more concerned that there's a slippage of power and it's going in the wrong direction. Because future generations will be, they'll have grown up in that sort of what they deem that they're supposed to be, and in a way that muscles out people who have contradictory opinions. Like, as I said about myself, a lot of things I quite enjoy. A lot of people do not like them, and all the things they like, I don't like. And they're trying to change the nature of humanity through propaganda, and it works on people who don't have developed brains to understand and don't even think that they're being brainwashed as they're being brainwashed. Um, and they're simply not going to see certain problems for what they are. There has to be the balance. There has to be uh, a factor of men. Well, it's just got to be men. Men have been in power for since civilization began. Sorry, women, but your story is it's got some interesting points and definitely worth listening to. But I'm a man, so I don't listen to your story entirely. Because there's a lot of things about it that actually are not funny, and that doesn't make you a better person because as of what we explained. And you know, it's guys like me that are actually in positions of influence. They've been observing my YouTube channel a long time, and I got put in this certain situation. I have my reasons for what I believe to be the reasons why I got put in my situation. Bad luck mostly, and also just circumstantial stuff. Like, I mean, my grandfather was in India for 9 years. Who knows what he got up to there? I don't know. It could have been anything. Um, yeah, and then here comes me, a few generations down the line, and I've got to deal with some problems. The problems of our age, and you know, don't really feel like I've got enough, people supporting me because they probably go, well, he doesn't really have an intelligent enough opinion for said people to risk their hides going along with what I said. And there's a lot of bitter division around my YouTube channel. There are people who are adamantly against everything I believe. And they have the advantage of being in their social network and being able to work as a team to institute psychological profiling and personality behavior modification. I've known about those things for a long time. And, I paid no never mind to them because they're not really doing a good job of trying to manipulate me. I mean, was that it? That was abysmal if they were trying to do whatever it is they were trying to do. And, I know there's something out there that knows a lot about me. I know that. And it's not a feeling that's simply going to go away. And it's not what people wanted to hear. Some people wanted to hear that I would give up on my beliefs and then conform to what society has been OCD, monotone, reiterating over and over and over and over again. And it's like, no, I didn't believe your stupid fucking story the first time around. I'm sure as hell not going to believe it now that you've said it probably a billion fucking times. Um, and, you know, uh, can't give up on my key values. So that uh, means I gotta figure a way out of this problem. That's what I gotta do. My skin happens to be itchy, so because it's rather warm. I don't like warm weather. It makes my skin itchy. If you're wondering why I keep scratching myself, particularly my face. Um, yeah, this conversation would sure be a lot more fun if there was an antagonist here, but there isn't. Um, however, um, still based on what I know of myself and how my YouTube channel has been going, indirectly, I know quite a bit of things. And, you know, uh, there are certain problems I simply don't care about anymore. They don't involve me. Those people who are involved in those problems don't care about my problems. And somehow I'm the bad guy. Why am I the bad guy? Because I don't go with your version of what's right and wrong. I don't do wrong things. They do under certain circumstances because they're different people. But I mean, people have been able to look at me, observe me, and make any conclusions they want, and have done so with no evidence to back up the things that they've been saying about me. Because they came to conclusions that were, out of this world, went into a totally wrong direction, um, and basically tried to guess the future, and they're wrong. And then, I'll get people accusing me going, well, you only have surface level intelligence. You didn't spend, 30 hours watching how 9/11 was an inside job and, jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams and blah, 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 blah. No, I didn't waste my time trying to study that stupid shit. Because at the end of the day, whoever put that up there on YouTube knows more than you did, and they gave you the dummy version. And they get the abridged version where, all that little information can be told a lot faster and a lot more efficiently, but they don't want you to do that. They want you to waste your time on stupid projects. There's this book, I would actually be interested in learning it, but it has 7 chapters and they're 11 hours long as an audiobook. Can you imagine spending that much amount of time learning about a certain situation? Sure, you're going to learn a lot, but that's going to be like a significant chapter in your life going through 11 hours a book, and there are 7 of them. It was about the Gulag Archipelago. It's up there on YouTube, but like each one's like 11 hours long, and it's like that's a lot of fucking stuff to watch. I mean, I realize that, I probably got about 95 hours of YouTube content, and for some people, that's quite a lot. That's about the same, actually. However, if there were enough people working on it and they actually worked together and weren't the problems of society, then, deciphering everything I've said on my YouTube channels could be summed up much quicker. But obviously, I've got a channel to make and I've got things to say. And yeah, my major conjecture with society is the view of what Asian civilization is. And I don't feel like white people should feel like we're defeatists or everything we did in the past was wrong and yada, 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 because, that's like anyone else was any better. But somehow it's the white man that's the problem because the white man's winning right now. And, I think I got picked out for this really shitty job of having to explain this to people. Because it is a shitty job with no perks. Fuck, do I get no perks? Nothing at all. It's like the people who understand this within the system and look at it and go, but look at all these poor individuals in Hong Kong. It was done because of white people. He's a white person. Why should I care? I'm gonna meddle in his business. And it's like you creepy, phony, fucking pretend you're an anonymous son of a bitch. Fucking damn it, man. Why don't you fuck off and leave me alone? Why don't you try that? I'd like that if you did, because I don't like you. And people are gonna go, well, are you gonna be like that with everyone who approaches you? And it's like, if I think the context of why you're approaching me is bullshit, I am going to tell you to fuck off. And, that's definitely not the answer they want to hear. They want to go, oh, he'll give in to his inclinations and all that sort of stuff. And, obviously, with an Asian chick, for example, they are gonna like immediately start the, like they may not know it, but or they probably will, but they'll immediately start trying to creep their philosophies into my world, and based on the perception people have, they're gonna go, well, because he's going for an Asian chick now, it's like he's being assimilated into the way of their thinking, and it's not gonna happen. Not going to happen. And I was using that for an example. Personally, as I said, I'd rather not go with an Asian chick. I'd rather it was a nice chick, like a white chick of some sorts. Uh, one with decent body, decent personality, uh, one that isn't being controlled by other people on how she is to behave around me. Don't like that very much. That pisses me off. And that sort of thing. And I've covered a lot of topics in this video because it's not easy to explain, and sometimes it takes a very, very long time to express exactly what it is, what the problem is, and for people to understand what the fucking problem is. And the reason I keep picking on the Asians is because it's not that there aren't other people in the world that despise us, because they are, but they're less competent. It's not their fault. Maybe it's, situational. Maybe they live in a shitty part of the world and they simply do not have the means, or they weren't thinking a certain thing, like science or technology or anything like that. And in order for them to do that, they've got to, do about 150 years worth of catching up. And some people are not built that way. Some people of certain ethnicities are not built that way to think that way. The most competent enemy to steal our land, basically, and has the reasons for wanting to do that, lies within the Asian subcontinent. And that's why I don't believe a civilian occupation force here within Vancouver, pulling the strings behind the scenes is a good thing, and I don't think people should be deluded into thinking it is based on government lies and propaganda. So anyway, I'm gonna finish this video up here because gotta unwind myself actually. Probably turn on my fan because it's really, really too warm for my liking. Um, so like this is all casual conversation for me, but for some people it's like he said what, and it's like yeah, I said some things you're not gonna like, and I wouldn't want people to take what I've said and agree with it, and then it puts them on a different flight path, and how am I responsible for them? I don't understand that, but um, you know, people always like to find someone to blame for their problems, and you know, they may or may not have legitimate cause to do so. However, they may have cause to blame other people for their problems. And I'm most certainly one of those people who could do that because there's reasons. Um, yeah, so I wish the counterparts in similar situations, but not the same situation as me, who are like-minded, I really hope that you know, they do what's best for them and things smooth over for them and things get better for them. Because, yeah, I know I have counterparts, that's for sure. And it's like, what they do isn't necessarily reflective upon me, but, you know, I don't know. Other people are going to think what they're going to think. So, anyway, I'll talk to people later.